Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be revamping a Hobby Lobby piece. Let's get started. We're going to make this chicken super fancy, and we have her already taped off so that we can go ahead and start the frame. I want to paint the frame out with cold black fusion mineral paint as our base for the crackle finish that we're going to be doing. So the first thing you're going to want to do is prep the piece and make sure that it's clean of all oils by wiping it down with some rubbing alcohol. Then just go in and paint it all up. It doesn't have to be perfect the first coat because it's just going to be the base and what you're going to see through the crackle. And you're going to want to paint the outside and the inside of the frame. Once that's done, you're going to give it a quick dry with your heat tool, making sure the paint is nice and smooth. And you're going to want to make sure that it's dry very well on all four sides before you start the crackle finish process. Once the piece is good and dry, you can go in with the Folk Art crackle medium. That's what I use. I get mine from Hobby Lobby or Amazon or pretty much any place that sells crafts, you can get it. And when I go in with the crackle medium and I want a small crackle, I cross hatch it back and forth. If you want a long crackle that's going to look like a board that's out and been weathered for a long time, if it's a bigger piece, you might want it to have longer crackles. So then you're going to make your crackle medium go in one long stroke. But if you want smaller crackles, you're going to put the crackle medium, and it's just clear. You can see it's just clear. You're going to put it on in crosshatch fashion, back and forth, and you'll have smaller crackles. And you'll see that when we put on the top coat of paint. And by crosshatched, I just mean back and forth in two different directions. Once your crackle medium is on, you give it a good dry with your heat tool and move on to the final step in the process. This is where the magic happens. And you want to make sure it's dried really well. And if you have the time, you can just let it dry in a couple of hours sitting on your desk. That certainly works as well. Okay, now for the final coat, I'm going to be using Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Casement. It's a nice bright white. I wanted it to be white to match the background of the chicken. And when you're applying the top coat, you want to make sure that you are working quickly and efficiently. You want a lot of paint on your brush because you don't want to have to go back over it. And that's one of the reasons that I use the Fusion Mineral Paint, because it's highly pigmented and you don't have to give it a second coat. It just covers that black really, really well. The reason being is that it starts to crackle immediately almost, and you don't want to go back over the paint that's crackling because then it won't be crackled anymore. But you can pretty much see how quickly this works. The process is always amazing to me and fun to watch. And see how taking the time to do that cross-hatching of the Folk Art Crackle Medium did its job. It's crackling in tiny, small cracks, and that's exactly what I wanted. I wanted it to look farmhouse and chippy and match the scale of the piece. And look at all that chippy goodness. Beautiful, right? And once the inside and the top and the outside is all painted, it's time to release the painter's tape because you don't want it to dry on there, and then when you pull the tape off, it'll pull off your paint. So I just use a weeding tool from my Cricut and Silhouette, and I just pull it up slightly, and it came up in little pieces, but that's okay. You just want to make sure you get rid of all the blue painter's tape. And hindsight, I probably stuck that painter's tape up underneath the lip of the frame a little bit too much, a little overkill. So I probably would just lay it down flush and not go underneath the frame so much that it's stuck under there. That's, I think, what the problem was there. But we got it. We got it with the Cricut tool. And lastly, we dry up the last coat before we fancy up this chicken. And boy, is she gonna be fancy. Now what I've done is I've bundled up some of the many of my little flower sprigs into a cute little bundle. And in the end, I add more lavender going down toward the right corner of the piece. But for now, I'm just going to adhere the bundle to the tail feathers of this chicken. And I'm going to add some lavender underneath it just to make it spread out like tail feathers would. Just adding the hot glue and laying down the base of the lavender. Once that's down, I just tap it with my silicone finger so as not to burn myself. And then I'm going to add just a little piece of satin ribbon to the bottom of the bundle before I glue it on top of the lavender, just to make it look a little finished. And aren't her tail feathers looking pretty? Now I made 5 different sizes of rolled ribbon roses from some scrap fabric that I have. Let me know in the comments if you would like to see a tutorial on how I do that. I would love to show you how. Very, very simple. And what I'm doing is I'm just placing them very snugly together, all 5 of them, on the body of the chicken, just to make her look like she's all dressed to the nines, right? And those of you who know me know that I'm a more is more kind of gal. So I am going to add a cute little bow to the bottom of that little bundle on her tail feathers. And I'm going to add some Totally Dazzled. Well, it's all Totally Dazzled, the bow and the bling. Little rhinestone brooches in the center of the rosettes, because she is a very fancy chicken. Now, don't forget to think outside of the box and add a little butterfly to the top corner. And she's nearly ready for the prom, I'm thinking. I chose a pretty little Totally Dazzled turquoise crown to go on top of her head. And look at all that bling. But like I said, more is more, right? I thought about putting that little purse in that corner there, but in the end, I filled up the purse and wrote feed on it and used it outside of the frame. And I added some more lavender flowers going downward and a little bow at her neck. And I topped that with a tiny little turquoise rosette. And I just think she's stunning. Let me know what y'all think. Is this something you'd fancy making for your home? If you enjoy my kind of crafting and it's inspired you, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Make sure you subscribe for more fun DIY tutorials. Thanks for watching.